Wheel of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. How you doing today, Tim?
Oh, I'm a little bit tired, but I think we're going to get through this. How about you?
I am also tired. But that's okay. We shall forge ahead. Before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. So, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Well, today we're going to be covering chapters 7 and 8 of The Eye of the World. In these chapters, Rand's worldview is completely shattered as he desperately tries everything to help his father. There is no going back to the way things were before. For him, everything is about to change.
All right. So here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Rand is reeling from Tam's revelation that he may not be Rand's father. Rand drags Tam through the woods for the rest of the night, finally reaching Emmons Field at dawn, but the village has also been attacked and partially burned down. Rand gets Tam to Nynaeve, but she tells Rand there's nothing she can do for him. Unwilling to accept that, Rand makes a last-ditch attempt to take Tam to the mayor. He sees that someone has carved the dragon fang on the door to the inn. Bran takes Tam up to one of the rooms, and after finding out that Nynaeve had said that she could do nothing for him, he tells Rand, with a little prompting from Tom, that Moiraine is an Aes Sedai and might be able to heal Tam. The men warn Rand to be wary of accepting gifts from Aes Sedai, but Rand is desperate. He finds Moiraine and Lan and begs her to save his father no matter what the price may be. Lan is a little grumbly, but Moiraine agrees to heal Tam.
Thanks for that summary. Chapter 7 is titled Out of the Woods, and the icon is the spooky tree.
To get started, I just want us to imagine what Rand is feeling right now and how desperate and miserable he is. Physically, his feet and shoulders are numb from the effort of dragging Tam through the forest. He's starving because he hasn't eaten anything since the early afternoon or possibly late morning the day before. His breathing is labored because his lungs are burning. He's in so much pain. And then Tam has fallen silent. And no matter how disturbing the fever dream mutterings were, the silence must be terrifying.
Absolutely.
You know, Rand doesn't dare to stop and check on Tam because he knows he's never going to get started again. So he's just desperate. And I just want to talk about what a good job Robert Jordan did with this chapter. It's similar to chapter 5, how it was all tension and drama and you know, it was so gripping and you were right there with Rand. Like chapter 5 and chapter 7 are very similar in that way. And just the writing is so clean and the imagery is so vivid. It's such good writing in this chapter.
It really, really is.
There's this quote that says, "Hope turned to sharp despair as he staggered into the village."
Yeah.
And he's realizing, you know, this whole time, the entire time he's been dragging Tam through the woods, he's just holding out that Emmons Field is going to be safe. Everything's going to be fine. Just get to the safety of Emmons Field. And he realizes the village has been attacked and that there is no safe place. There is no safe harbor. And he's completely shocked. And the only thing that I can think of to compare it to is how we as Americans felt at 9/11.
Right.
You know, we you know, had the strongest country in the world and no one would dare ever attack us, right?
Well,
we were completely wrong. And like I remember that feeling when I first saw the news and I saw what was going on, just completely shocked and just the disbelief. Like this wasn't happening. This was not reality. There's no way. You know, not here, not in America, not with our strength and our might. And we were safe here. And we were completely wrong. You know, that feeling of being untouchable is false.
It's totally
And
wrong.
that's what Rand is going through here. He thought that Emmons Field was untouchable, but he was wrong.
Yeah. He even makes this comment he makes this comment to himself that not the two rivers, not here. It's like, and I think this is something that we all do. Like, it doesn't matter what community you're a part of, whether you're a small town or not. Like, there's always this idea that here we don't have that thing. Whether you're a small town, you talk about we don't have crime, we don't have we don't have people shooting each other in the streets, things like that. And it's like it's almost like there's this idea that bad things don't happen here; they happen out there.
Right, in other places.
Yeah, and our community is immune to this because we're a community. And Rand totally has his idea of that, like, safety, that sphere of his community has been completely shattered in this moment of, like, no, everything you've actually assumed about your town is completely torn out from under you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what 9/11 felt like for most of us.
Yeah, and the theme for all four of these chapters, 5, 6, 7, and 8, is disillusionment.
Yeah.
And having that loss of innocence and having that worldview shattered.
Yeah. So when Rand is coming into the village for the first time, the first person who meets him is Haraluen, the blacksmith. And Rand is kind of like, he's looking around and he sees people doing things that they're like, everyone's fixating doing their thing to, like, kind of cope with what's going on.
Right.
And it's interesting because we see so few lines from Haraluen through the entire series. But in this chapter, he is a chatterbox. Like, I don't know anybody in my life who may possibly ramble and start, like, just talking.
Surely not.
When, maybe they're nervous. They don't quite know what they say. They start just filling words and words and words. I don't know anybody like that. So it's kind of funny that as like Haraluen comes and grabs the litter and totally helps Rand right away. It's not like he sits there and just chats him to death. Like, he's helping, but as they're walking through the village, he's talking about this and that and the other thing. And Rand's just like, get Tam to Nynaeve. Get Tam to Nynaeve.
So, Rand and Haraluen meet up with Egwene.
Yeah.
And it says, Rand was too tired, too stunned to speak. All through the night, Emond's Field had been a haven where he and Tam would be safe. Now, all he could seem to do was stare in dismay at her smoke-stained dress. He noticed odd details as if they were very important. The buttons down the back of her dress were done up crookedly, and her hands were clean. He wondered why her hands were clean when smudges of soot marked her cheeks. And Rand is exhibiting, shocked, like, grieving behavior.
Yeah.
Because when you're grieving or when you're shocked, like, the information that your brain has been presented with is too great to process. So your brain chooses these small, insignificant details to focus on because it's information that it can compute. So it's very realistic in these types of situations.
It is. And it's beautiful, too. I just love that contrasting. Like the clean hands amongst the, like, complete wreckage.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, totally. I also love the part where Haraluen is talking about his wife. And he says,
Yes.
Elsbeth cracked one skull with a frying pan. She took one look at the ashes of our house this morning and set out hunting around the village with the biggest hammer she could dig out of what was left of the forge, just in case any of them hid instead of running away. I can almost pity the thing if she finds one.
Tempest, maybe?
I love her. She is so cool.
Yeah. And we've said this multiple times, but I think it's worth saying again. Like Haraluen has this line here. He's like, the light will take care of us, and if the light doesn't, then we'll take care of ourselves. We're two rivers folk.
Right, the two river stubbornness.
Yeah, and it's what's gonna pull them through the rest of this day, let alone what happens in the coming books. But it's just really kind of cool to pause and take that moment of, like, we're two rivers folk.
Yeah. So one thing that struck me throughout the entire chapter is how convinced everybody is that Nynaeve can heal everything.
Right?
Like, they have complete confidence in her. Rand is sure the entire time he's with Tam that Nynaeve is going to heal him as soon as he gets there.
No question.
And Bran, too. Like, when Rand takes Tam to the inn, Bran is like, don't worry about it. We'll get Tam to Nynaeve. Everything's fine. And even, Tom and Moraine as outsiders, they recognize how talented she is. They reassure, Rand, saying Nynaeve knows what she's about. Like, Nynaeve is good at her job. And when she tells Rand that she can't do anything for Tam. It's inconceivable to Rand. You know, he can't accept it as reality because he did not doubt for 1 second that she could heal Tam. You know, it never even entered his brain that there was a possibility that Nynaeve couldn't heal Tam.
Right. She can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also really heartbreaking, this scene where when Rand brings Tam to Nynaeve. Like, it hits on so many levels. Like, the first one is, like, triage is hard. Like, first responders, doctors, EMTs, all those people who are, like, there in crisis interventions. Or not intervention, but when a crisis goes down.
Right.
Like, those people, you have to make the hard call. That the same one that Nynaeve does here. She doesn't have unlimited resources. She only has so many herbs. She only has so much medicine. She can only help so many people with what she has.
Right.
And she has to make the call and cut her losses. Tam is too far gone for her to help.
Right.
She has to leave him. She has to go help those that she can help.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll die.
Yeah.
And it's like, on the one hand, like, it just, dang, I would hate to ever have to be in that position to make that decision.
Yeah, definitely.
And then on the flip side of it, Nynaeve isn't just the kind of person who can be that hard person. I mean, she can be. I mean, she can make the hard decisions. She can be strong, but she's also the kind of person who stops and looks at Rand, who, like, pleads with her, look, I did everything I could. And she stops and she reaches out, she touches his face and very tenderly says, you did everything you could. It's not your fault.
Yeah. Yeah, she comforts him.
And she flips it on a dime. She just goes straight from, like, I've got to make this decision to move on, and she stops and she takes a moment for Rand. And then she stops and she goes back to what she has to do because she has lives to save.
Yeah, you know, she's like, don't you think I would help him if I could? You know, this isn't easy for her. And that's the thing, because it's not easy for her. She respects Tam, and she cares about both Tam and Rand. You know, she's watched Rand grow up to a certain extent, and she hates not being able to heal the sick or dying. You know, she hates death. She sees it as wasteful, and it makes her angry. And I really think that this situation, because it happens in such a close timing with finding out that she can channel, I think that this is one of her motivations for going to the tower and learning to be Aes Sedai. Like, as much as she says it's to get, you know, revenge on Moraine and blah, 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 whatever, I think that's just her lying to herself, because she does have such that inherent bias against Aes Sedai, and
they all do.
And she's so angry at Moraine, and she hates Moraine so much. But I think that when she realizes that she can learn to heal and she never has to be in this situation again, I think that's a huge motivating factor for her. You know, like, I'm sure that she realizes, because she's smart, I'm sure she realizes that if she, you know, was able to channel, she could have healed Tam.
Right.
You know, she would never have to look at someone and tell them that their loved one is going to die, like she did with Rand, you know? I really do think that's one of the motivations. I know it's not in the book, but it's in my head. That's one of her motivating factors.
I'm on board. I'm totally with you at that. And there's this line that happens, is like, as she walks away, it doesn't matter how many times I read the story, like, this always drives a knife right through my heart. And like, Rand watches her walk away back into the house to help other people who are sick, and the line is, the door behind which his hopes had vanished, that door closes, and it's just like his entire world just literally ended. Yeah,
definitely. So Rand takes Tam to the inn, and Tom is sitting there mending his cloak because it's gotten singed.
Fire does that.
Yeah. And the book says, he set down cloak and scissors when Rand drew near. Without asking if Rand needed or wanted help, he hopped down and picked up the back of the litter. I love what this says about Tom's character, because Tom is a stranger in Emond's Field. He doesn't know Rand. He doesn't know Tam. They are not important to him at all. But as soon as he sees Rand, he puts down his cloak, which is very important to him. And like doesn't even think about it. He just like puts it down and goes to help immediately because Tom is a good person.
Yeah. So the men are sitting in the room trying to like figure out what to do about Tam when they find out Nynaeve can't do anything.
Yeah.
And Tom starts beating around the bush about Aes Sedai because he doesn't want to be the one to bring up, let's just take him to Moraine.
Right, especially since someone scrawled the dragon fang on the door.
Right. They're likely to run him out of town as well as her.
Because he's a stranger. No one knows him.
But if it comes from the mayor, then it'll be okay. And Rand's probably more likely to actually go to Moraine if the mayor suggests it than Tom.
Right. But yeah, it is pretty masterful, like the way he brings up the idea as if it's Bran's realization.
Right.
You know, like, because he's a master of the game of houses, so.
And through the whole thing, like, and there's this really great bit where, like, Bran's even like, well, we wouldn't have been able to survive the night without them. And Tom takes a moment to, like, say, well, hold on a second. You people held your own. I mean, we just saw the thing earlier where, you know, Elizabeth went through and, like, cracked skulls with a frying pan. So Tom's like, no, you guys held your own. I mean.
Yeah, which is great when you think about how he started out being kind of derisive, you know, back in chapter 3 or 4 or whatever it was. And now he's like giving credit where credit's due. Like, no, you guys did well.
Tom's a good guy.
He is. And also, so, you know, Tom leads Bran to the subject of Aes Sedai. And, you know, Rand, of course, is like, Aes Sedai, no, all the stories, they say they're these horrible people and blah, blah, blah. And Tom says, some of the stories are exaggerated in a way, Tom added, as if the words were being dragged from him. Some of them. So this is huge for Tom to say about Aes Sedai, considering his history.
Yeah.
Like, Tom, we'll find out later, you know, what his history is. But Tom has good reason to hate Aes Sedai and not trust them. And,
yes, he does.
And Warren ran away from them. So the fact that he's saying, okay, yes, you've heard the stories. I've told you some of the stories, but some of them have been exaggerated. Like, it might be worth considering, you know, asking Aes Sedai for help here. Like, it's a lot coming from Tom.
It's also kind of funny, like as soon as Rand like starts actually listening to what he's saying, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get her." Like Tom tries to like get out. Well, hold on a second. And Aes Sedai's promise isn't necessarily what you expect,
right?
But like halfway through that like sentence, Rand's already out the door and gone.
Yeah,
because he doesn't care what the cost. He wants to save his dad.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the Emmons Fielders have so much bias against Aes Sedai. You know, Rand, throughout the entire series, has so much bias against Aes Sedai. And for Rand, it's like making a deal with the devil at this point.
Right.
And Marine even tells him, like, throughout the night, people have refused to let her help because of their inherent biases.
Boy.
And it's like, guys, look at the situation you're in. Like, I realize you've got problems, but come on.
Yeah, we're not pretending
Let's not be
perfect,
counterproductive here.
Yeah. It's interesting, like, as Rand is talking to Moraine, like, Lan drops this little random line about how the Dark One is able to bring back his followers from the dead.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to kind of, like, put that up as a huge, big, like, flare, because, yes, if you expect people who serve the Dark One to die in this series, you got another thing coming. They keep coming back.
Yeah. That's cheating.
At Scrabble, absolutely.
And then at the very end, Lan tells Rand, I don't know that you're worth it, sheepherder, no matter what she says. Which is just a little hint that Rand, you know, Moraine obviously feels that Rand is important, even though we don't quite know why yet.
Right. And that brings us to the end of chapter 7. But now, a word from our sponsor.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Battle Ready Frying Pans. Do you find yourself in need of a way to fend off hordes of shadow spawn? You may have been tempted by ads for those newfangled tea kettles, but don't be fooled. Why opt for flashy newer models when the original Battle Ready frying pans can get the job done so well? When you need to crack a Trolloc skull, you need a product you can trust. Battle Ready frying pans. Stick with the original.
Next, we come to chapter 8, where the icon is Moraine's staff, and the title is A Place of Safety.
All right. Moraine goes to heal Tam, and that gives both Moraine and Lan the opportunity to drop a lot of exposition on Rand and us, the readers. She has to take out her Angreal in order to heal Tam fully, and when finished explains that he will need weeks of bed rest to recover, but he will be fine. Once Tam is doing better, Moraine informs Rand that the Trollocs were after him specifically, as well as Mat and Perrin. Rand doesn't believe it at first, but Moraine and Lan convince him that it is not worth risking Emond's Field further, and at last Rand agrees to go with her to Tar Valon.
I'm going to just come right out and say it. This chapter feels a little info dumpy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so this is book 1 of what was, if you can believe this, was supposed to be just a 3 or maybe a 4 book long series. 14 books later.
That was a long time ago.
So there's, and even if it was just that original 3, like there's bound to be spots in the story in the first book, especially where we have, and this is how the world works sections. You know?
Yeah, like we get these little blocks of information, like Heron Mark Blade means sword master, and Lan explains about how Marigels work.
Yeah,
and we get introduced to Angreal in this chapter, and it's necessary information. But it's kind of a bummer after how expertly done Chapter 7 was. Chapter 8's just like, and let me exposit at you for a chapter.
Yeah, and I think he does. I think Jordan does a good job of like trying to present this from like Rand's point of view. He's like trying to slip his information in, and
right.
I mean, it's a hard kind of thing to do in a chapter. I think he does it okay. It just feels info dumpy, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. We really do need this information, but exposition is never fun.
Yeah. So Lan and Moraine come in, and then Tom makes a very hasty exit because that's what he does. And Lan makes this comment about how there's something about him, he's talking about Tom, that I don't trust.
Right, yeah.
Things can be very different on a read through. Like my first time through the series, and I think Jordan does this intentionally. Like we don't know whether or not we should trust Tom. So Lan's comment here kind of makes sense. He may not trust him either.
Yeah,
which is really funny because once you get to the end of the series and you come back to this, it's like, old Lan. If you only knew half of the things that old man was capable of,
seriously,
and let alone how like he and Moraine end up together at the end of the story.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah,
it's pretty funny.
Yeah. And on that note, talking about Lan, I feel this time through, Lan just seems more gloomy and broody than he usually does to me. I'm not sure why.
He kind of is at the beginning of this book. He's very gloom and doom and just very broody and grumpy. But I do think that in this chapter specifically, he's being nicer to Rand than he usually is. Like, yeah. Lan is kind of gruff with the boys. You know,
especially
like
in this first book.
Yeah, calling them names and just he's not happy about their company at all.
No.
But in this particular scene, when Rand is saying, admitting that the Marigel scared him, Lan says, "There's no need for shame, sheepherder. They scare me too. I've seen men who've been soldiers all their lives freeze like birds facing a snake when they've confronted a half-man." And then later, when Rand is talking about killing Narg and saying, it was complete luck, it was an accident, like it wasn't, anything that he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lan gives him credit and says, "Even so, that's something to speak of, sheepherder. Until last night, there were few men south of the borderlands who could say they had seen a Trolloc, much less killed one." Aww. And, for Lan to give him credit and to say, hey, there's no shame for being afraid. Like, I just feel like he's being nice. And
he is.
It's probably because, Tam is there looking like he's dying right in front of Rand.
Right.
So, Lan's human and has compassion. But I don't know. I think he's being nicer to Rand than he usually is. And that's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. Rand takes a moment in the middle of all of this to ask if he had mentioned the the Dark Rider. Right, yeah. Would it have made a difference? Mm-hmm. And, Moraine says no, even if I had all my sisters, it wouldn't happen. And Lan's kind of like, well, it would have helped.
It would have been nice.
But, and I think what Rand's doing here is something that's 100% normal. When you're in a situation where you have no control. And even more importantly, you don't have an explanation for why. Like this is kind of coming back to like the 9/11 kind of thing. Like when you don't have a good explanation or tangible like reason why something happened, it's very easy in many situations to like turn in on yourself with the blame and the guilt.
Right.
Even if it's completely irrational. And part of the reason behind that is because at least you have someone to blame. And I think it's very normal what Rand is doing here. He's kind of like, okay, well, if I had said something, then my village wouldn't have been destroyed, right?
Yeah.
And Lan and Moraine are like, no, there's no easy answers. Sorry, that's not it.
Right. And it's sort of similar when they start talking about the Dark One. So, quote, "The Dark One was always there. He knew that. But if you try to walk in the light, tried to live a good life, and did not name him, he could not harm you. That was what everybody believed, what everybody learned with his mother's milk. But Moraine seemed to be saying," and then he trails off. And this is a very kind of Western world Christian notion to think that if you're a good person and you walk in the light, that evil can't touch you.
Right.
And if it does, then it's because you've done something bad. You've brought it on yourself.
Right.
But the reality is that evil can be arbitrary. And bad things happen to anybody, whether they're good people or bad people.
Yep.
And I think, again, like when people are trying to find something to blame, they can tend to put blame where there really isn't any.
True. That's very true. And again, like Rand believes this because this is what he's always been told. And you're going to see this again and again. It doesn't matter if it's the Dark One or how the power works. People believe it because that's what they've always believed. And Jordan is going to give us a lot of unreliable point of views here of people who 100% believe that something is a certain way throughout the whole series.
Right, like they're unreliable narrators because they're stuck in their limited worldviews.
Exactly. That's when the most coolest things happen in the series is when we step outside those expectations.
Right. So there's just this little moment that you can very easily just sort of gloss over when you read. Lan wonders how that many Trollocs got into the two rivers without anyone noticing, and that becomes later. Important later.
Yeah.
We know that it was that they used the ways, and the ways will be a part of the story later on. But yeah, just stick that in your mind. So Lan tells Rand that the Trollocs only attacked his farm and the Ibarra farm, and then in the village, they went after the coffin house, the forge, and the blacksmith's house. So they were specifically targeting Rand, Perrin, and Matt.
Right.
So they're the reasons the Trollocs came. So the boys have to leave.
Like that's gotta be so weird. Like it's gotta be such a mind-blowing thing to like realize that not only are these nightmares from your like they're walking. These are fables come to life. And not only have they destroyed your town, they've destroyed it because they're looking for you.
Right.
That's just got to blow your mind.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So it takes Rand a while to accept this. And even when he has kind of accepted it, there's still that last little bit of Two River stubbornness that's like, if they're really after me after all. And then it says, Moraine's eyebrows raised as if she were surprised that he was not convinced. So I think this references back to the coin bond.
Right.
Because at this point, now that he's been bonded with the coin bond, he should be more
compliant,
open to her suggestions, and like go along with what she says, and yeah, he should be more compliant. So the fact that he's still resisting is kind of her first inkling that, oh, there's something different about Rand.
Yep.
So the title of this chapter is A Place of Safety.
Right.
And it refers specifically to Moraine talking about there being a place of safety in Tar Valon. I think that whole thing borders on a lie. I mean, okay, so yes, it's true that Tarvalon will be safe from Trollocs and Myrddraal. So in that respect, it is a place of safety. But, I mean, she's talking to Rand. She knows one of these boys is the Dragon Reborn.
That's right.
So Tarvalon is not a safe place for whoever that turns out to be. And, I mean, the reality is that it's not a safe place for any of the three of them, but she doesn't know about the other two yet.
True.
But definitely, she knows that one of them is the Dragon Reborn, and Tarvalon is dangerous for that one. And so, I don't know. I mean, I get that it's the Aes Sedai twisting of the truth and half-truths and whatever.
And
but
Moiraine
this is
a,
really skirting the line of honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, even for a blue and even for a master of the game of houses, she's right on that line. I 100% agree. We're coming to the end of the chapter. And
I don't really have anything else.
If there was one character that I kind of wish we would have gotten to know a little more about, and I know it's not possible, just the way everything rolls. I don't think Robert Jordan intentionally cut her short, but I really would love to have seen Mistress Alvaire.
Yeah,
she's
what we do get of her is so great.
She's so nurturing. She's so loving. She kind of keeps Rand's hope is kind of personified in her a little bit. And would I have loved a bit of fly on the wall in the conversation that she had with Moiraine, that definitely. We never get to see anywhere in the text.
Yeah, I really want to know what happened in that conversation.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the chapter.
Yep, that ends chapter 7 and 8 of the Eye of the World. In next week's episode, we will discuss chapters 9 and 10, where we see dark dreams, hear of rich history, and there is a mad dash through the night. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate us and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a positive review. It really helps us out. You can tweet us at Pod-Thru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.